Hey y'all, today we're going to react to 20 things Americans do and don't think's normal. Anyway, this should be interesting. I hope y'all enjoy the video. So let's get into it. Let's see how this goes.
Number 20. Refer to the USA as America. Outside of the United States of America, referring to the country as America is much less commonplace. After all, there are two entire continents called America, comprising like 35 distinct nations. Referring to only one country on one of those continents as America too is really confusing for anyone who doesn't live there.
From this day
America.
forward, it's going to be only America first. America first.
Calling it the US, USA, the United States, or just the States is much more common in the rest of the world. Even so, everyone still calls its residents Americans, which
Yeah,
isn't
we
confusing at
refer to
all.
ourselves as American.
You can't say it,
America.
but you know it's true.
Number 19. Throw gender reveal parties. Cultures the world over have traditions to prepare expecting parents and celebrate the expected birth of a child. Americans have really taken the concept and run with it. An entire industry has been built around baby showers, as well as their modern relatives' gender reveal parties. Emerging in the 2000s, the latter have become infamous for sometimes absurd levels of showmanship. Number 18. Experience huge bathroom stall gaps. Every country's restrooms have their own quirks, like different sinks and toilet bowls. The US is known for having a high volume of water in their bowls and large gaps in their bathroom stalls, both under the door and between the door and the walls. Visitors can be taken aback at the
That way
lack
we
of
can see if
privacy.
somebody's in that
Some
motherfucker.
hold that they're designed for easy cleaning or construction.
Oh, my bad. I
Others
don't
that
think
it
I was
allows
supposed
one
to
to
cuss,
check
but-
which stalls are occupied, although occupancy indicators on the locks can do that too. It might also make it more difficult to get up to no good in there. Whatever the case, public bathrooms in the US are built for speed, not comfort. 17. Have pharmacies that sell groceries. In most of the world, pharmacies sell exactly what their name implies, pharmaceuticals. While you will see tangentially related items like grooming products or hygienic things like toothbrushes, pharmacies
Yeah, I don't have it.
usually carry food or toys. But in the US, that's much more common. The country is all about the all-in-one experience. Not only will dedicated grocery stores have pharmacies built in, but pharmacies will also carry groceries. Granted, the selection isn't always great, but if you're desperate for milk and the grocery store is closed or you just don't feel like crossing the street to get there, you can get some. While most of the world still limits drugstores to drugs and self-care products, we have a feeling this one might catch on. Number 16. Vote before they can drink. The voting age on a global scale is also generally 18, for similar reasons, although of course there are exceptions.
The Voting Rights Act of 1970 lowered the voting age to 18 for national elections, and the 26th Amendment made the change to 18 permanent for all elections.
And 18 is where it has stayed for the past 50 years.
However, the United States requires young adults to wait 3 years after being able to vote before legally
Excuse
being
me, I'm
allowed to
sorry,
drink
y'all.
at 21. This was enacted during the 1980s to prevent alcohol-related driving accidents. While it helped in the short term, ultimately it hasn't really stopped teenagers from drinking.
You
The
can't
result
drink
is
unless
that
you're
many people,
21.
both inside and outside the U.S., question the logic of why an 18-year-old American can decide who forms the government but not get buzzed. Number 15. Get free refills. One of the biggest differences between American restaurants and the rest of the world are their drink services. Most American and many Canadian restaurants and other establishments will offer at least one free refill of a non-alcoholic drink. The idea is that because of the low cost of drinks, particularly fountain soft drinks, offering a refill won't hurt the establishment's bottom line, particularly if drinks are not the primary source of income. However, the idea has been slow to catch on in the rest of the world, and it's nowhere near as consistently offered. Some countries have raised concern that a practice like this can lead to an increase in obesity. Number 14. Tip service personnel.
All right.
The concept of tipping waitstaff or other people in the service industry is known worldwide. Few countries have embraced the concept to the degree the US has. Many workers, particularly in the restaurant industry, rely on gratuities to get by, in part because laws allow managers to pay sub-minimum wages to tipped workers. However, in various other countries, tipping is seen as insulting. They're just doing their jobs after all. While some countries' workers certainly appreciate it, it isn't expected like it is in the US. Mostly because employees are paid a high enough baseline salary that they don't need tips to survive. The American military is probably the best in the world. As it should be, since it's also one of the best funded militaries in the world. In fact, the U.S. spends several times more on their military than their nearest competitor, China.
Yes.
What's more, there are more than a few American citizens who have a higher than average fascination with their own
I
military.
have 2
and
sons in the
I thank you
military,
as our-
so
as
yeah,
the Commander-in-Chief,
we do love our
because
military.
You inspire me. Your willingness to serve, to step forward at a time of war and say, "Send me," is the reason the United States stays strong and free.
While other countries certainly appreciate their troops, you don't, see as many people wearing camouflage as a legitimate fashion statement. Likewise, you don't see movies made elsewhere that glorify the military
Camo,
to the degree
huh?
that the U.S. does. Part of the American enthusiasm is certainly rooted in patriotism. Still, it may also be a reaction to an increasingly anti-military sentiment that has popped up over the last several decades. Number 12, use red plastic cups. If you've ever seen an American movie where a college party happens, chances are you've seen characters drinking from red cups. These red plastic or solo cups are everywhere in the US. The cheap drinking containers are a favorite at parties,
Red
both for their
Solo cup,
durability
baby.
and their ease of use in party games. While they're also handy for crafts or gardening, they're most famous for their intended purpose. However, the rest of the world either doesn't have the United States party culture's emphasis on kegs or lacks the same distinctive cups, originally manufactured by the Solo Cup Company. At most, you might see them at a novelty American-themed party.
A red Solo
Number
cup.
11, wear shoes inside. Taking off
Yeah.
your shoes before you enter a home,
I mean,
or
some
at
places.
least in the entryway, is pretty common etiquette in many countries.
Don't do that.
Uncommon for Americans to smile in passing, but their comfort with new people also extends to small talk, saying hello, or even striking up a conversation out of the blue. In many countries, speaking to strangers unprompted can be seen as intrusive or even risky. Many Americans are masters of the art, though, often happy to chat with people they've never met about the weather, sports, or whatever else comes up in conversation. Number 7, casually own guns. In many countries, gun laws are strict and gun ownership is relatively rare. In the U.S., gun ownership is protected by the Second Amendment, and
Shut-
gun ownership is
I
the
think
highest
we got
in
the
world.
largest
Despite
civilian
making up
army in the
4%
world.
of the global population, Americans own 46% of civilian-held firearms. There's a
Yeah.
distinct gun culture, where gun ownership is celebrated or at least seen as important for personal safety. Most states even allow you to open carry. Of course, the issue is extremely divisive due to the country's high rate of gun deaths. Either way, the idea of having so many guns around is a novel one for many visitors. Number 6, put sales tax on everything.
Sales tax is
Ain't
paid
that
when
the-
you buy something, and the business you purchased your goods from sends that money to the government. There are 2 types of sales tax: general sales tax and excise taxes.
What about the third one?
General sales tax is a tax levied on most goods you buy.
Yeah.
Excise taxes are taxes levied only on certain items.
Most countries enact a value-added tax, or VAT, on goods or services purchased within their borders. These taxes are collected from every person in the supply chain, from the distributors to the consumers. The United States is one of the few to use sales tax, which not only vary wildly from state to state, but are only enacted after a purchase has been made. They're also not listed in the initial price, which can leave foreign visitors, and many Americans, scratching their head as to why they're being charged more than the price on the product. Better or worse? You decide. It's certainly more confusing. Number 5, recite a Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag
to the flag
of the United
of the
States of
United
America
States of America
and to the
In many
republic
parts of the
for
United
which
States,
we stand,
school children
one
and
nation,
adults in
under
some
God,
settings are expected
indivisible,
to recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
with liberty and
Back
justice
then,
for
in
all.
1892, when it was written by
Blah, blah, blah.
Francis Bellamy, Bellamy was a Baptist minister, and in conjunction with a magazine called The Youth's Companion, he wrote this, at that time, 23-word Pledge of Allegiance.
We do
This is
pledge
an
our
expression
allegiance
that they
to
will
our
be
country.
loyal to the USA and
From-
is usually performed daily
from a
while
little
looking at the
age.
nation's flag, which you will find hanging everywhere, by the way.
I think that's
isn't
another
something
reason why
other
we're so
countries do. They might
patriotic.
salute or respect their flag and country, but to make school children recite an oath to the country, the pledge has been the subject of plenty of controversy within the U.S. too, particularly since it mentions God. While some schools no longer require it, it remains a widespread practice. Number 4. Watch ads for prescription drugs. Aside from New Zealand, the United States is the only country in the world that advertises prescription drugs directly to consumers. Every day, Americans are bombarded with ads for prescription medications.
Every
featuring
fucking day.
generic,
Every
pleasing imagery
day,
and
man.
a list of
All
side effects
day.
longer than a flagpole. Many people, Americans included, are baffled by the practice, as doctors and not patients are meant to decide what drugs to prescribe. Proponents claim that advertising increases competition and lowers drug costs. Meanwhile, prescription drugs are typically far more expensive in the United States, as the U.S. doesn't regulate or negotiate drug prices. Number 3. Put months before days. Most of humanity marks calendar dates as being day first, then month, then year, or else the opposite as year, month, then day. The reasoning is that you can go from the shortest value to the longest or vice versa. Yet the United States and parts of Canada eschew both these formats by putting the month first, then day, then year. The US has been using this format basically since its founding, although it has used the day first format interchangeably too. The exact reason why is debatable, but as far as practicality goes, it can be useful when filling out forms to know which month it is before which day or year. Number 2, go bankrupt from healthcare. Medical costs are the cause of
heard
over
that
60%
shit.
of all bankruptcies in the United States.
The
Americans
countries.
experience a variety of unexpected charges while getting much needed care.
But
From
then there wouldn't be
supplied
prescription
bills to being charged
commercials.
for riding in an ambulance. In some parts of the civilized world, even seeing a medical bill can be an uncommon occurrence. Healthcare worldwide tends to be much more regulated than it is in the U.S. It's either funded through taxes in a single-payer system or else through individual insurers who are more strictly monitored. Bottom line, while there can sometimes be extra charges, for most of the world, medical debt is basically unheard of, except in horror stories about the U.S. Number 1, use the imperial measurement system.
Can you explain to me how the country that can send men and hopefully women to the moon
all and beyond.
still are in gallons and inches? And when the entire world is metric, I do not understand this.
There are 3 countries in the world that don't use the metric system: Myanmar, Liberia, and the United States. Objectively, metric is the less arbitrary measurement system, since everything goes by tens. Even Britain and Commonwealth countries have converted.
The point is, the US system has always been a little more accessible than metric. Sure, stacking up 12 thumb widths to make a foot, that's still kind of weird, but it's not so weird that we're clamoring to change it.
Although admittedly, they do still use measurements like feet and inches casually.
So now I can't ask a distance when I visit another country. I'm like, how far is that? They're like, that's 500 kilometers. I'm not in the Olympics.
So why hasn't the US converted? I'll give you one guess. Did you say it's because of money? Because money is definitely a big factor. Converting to a whole
It would
new
take
system
a
of measurement
whole
is
lot
expensive.
of money.
Other factors include a need for control and stability of the U.S. So, inertia, basically. Why change when you don't need to?
Exactly.
You know what your mom says. If all the other countries jumped off a bridge, would the U.S. do it too? Or something like that.
A
I'd hope
2015
not.
Rasmussen poll asked Americans if we should switch to the metric system and adopt Celsius as our main temperature scale. 64% said no, while 21% said yes, and the remaining 15% was undecided. So it looks like we're perfectly fine with being different.
Well, I hope y'all enjoyed this. If you would, hit that like and follow. I'll do more of these every day, as much as I can anyway. I hope you enjoyed it. It was a little different. I had a little intake on it, learned a little few things, but hope you did too. Until next time, peace.